Welcome to Psychic Insights, where pop culture meets higher consciousness and the tea is always a little bit mystical. I'm Robin Richardson, your psychic girlfriend, and around here we don't just watch the drama unfold. We read the energy behind it, whether it's celebrity scandals, reality TV, chaos, or true crime with a twist. I'm tuning in to bring you the intuitive scoop the headlines miss. So buckle up, because your aura's about to get entertained. Welcome back to my channel. It's Robin Richardson, your psychic girlfriend, and thank you for being here. And if you're new, welcome back. If you're new here, just welcome. All right, this has been a busy week for me. I don't know about you guys, but there's been a lot going on. So I don't usually cover the Love Trapped bonus episodes, but the wellness check episode was something I felt like I wanted to cover. So I did, and I recorded it, and I scheduled it, and then I sat and thought about it, and I thought, I'm not happy with it. So here we are. Here we are. So I went back and I really listened to it. And there are two moments in particular for me that changed everything. And it's not just what happened, but it's how it was handled. Because when you listen closely, you start to feel a gap. And and all of us listen to this and we're like, what is happening here? First of all, I love the Love Trap podcast. So this is not about the actual podcast. It's about what's being said in it and how people are responding. So I went back in after I scrapped my first reading, and this time I looked at both of the welfare checks with Laura Owens, and they show two sides of the same dynamic. So in this episode, if you haven't listened to it, but if you have, let me remind you, there are actually two welfare checks in this episode on Laura Owens. And the first one shows us a pattern. And the second shows us the moment where things start to become really clear. All right. So in the first welfare check, Laura isn't even a part of the conversation. We're told she's sleeping. And Jan is the one speaking to the officers. And by speaking, she's weaving her tale, right? And then almost immediately, like that, the focus shifts. All right? The officers are there to check on Laura, but the conversation becomes about harassment and Reddit and ex-boyfriends and podcasts and, the whole entire narrative. And this is where it stood out to me, because instead of saying, is she okay? It becomes, let me explain everything that's been happening. And as a mother, if cops showed up my door with a wellness check on my daughter, you can be damn sure that girl would be getting up from her sleepy time, and I would be like, what is happening? And I'd want to make sure she's okay. Really okay. All right, let me say first, this is my commentary. These are my insights. It's for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm not diagnosing anybody, but I am watching where energy goes. I'm into patterns. I'm into spiritual inquiry. And if you're here, I hope you do too, because when someone is there on, for a wellness check, and this response tells you how the situation is being perceived. And not to mention, I'm going to jump to the end real quick. There's a candy bar moment. After all this explanation that Jan has about Laura and what's going on with Laura, she gives the officer a candy bar. And he's like, well, thank you. Yay, chocolate. After he had to endure all of this, right? All right. So I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, but it's such a human moment. It shows you something, how quickly the energy shifts from intensity to normal. This is devastating. This is chaos. Also, would you like a snack? And imagine that police officer or those police officers walking away okay, that was a lot, but I did get a candy bar. So that was really the first wellness check we saw. That's the pattern. Now let's look at the second one. because the second welfare check, that was actually called in by the FBI, and the Scottsdale police had to, came to the residence in Scottsdale, and this is where Laura was actually present. And this is where we hear her speak. And this is where the tension becomes clear, because in the same breath, she says, I really felt, I'm going to use the word self-harm here, I really felt this, and then I'm fine. Like she had just placed this complaint with the FBI, cyber stalking department, and they were concerned enough to call the Scottsdale police, and she's saying, I'm fine. I felt that at some point, but now I'm fine. And that contradiction is everything, because now we have two things happening at the same time: acknowledgement of distress and immediate minimization of it. And when you pair that with the first wellness check, everything is explained around her, and you start to feel this gap. So when I looked at the two welfare checks, it's not what's happening, it's how it's being handled. And that's where I wanted to go a little deeper, because this is where the energy gets layered. So I asked my cards, I do it. Had to pull the cards. Let me back up for a second, but listening to this episode, I was like feeling so squirrely. I was feeling like, oh my God, I had to just keep moving, because that energy they have and that family dynamic and that energy of Jan, I needed to lay down and take a nap. All right, so I asked my cards a few very specific questions about what's actually going on underneath all of this. So my first question I came up with, what was really happening emotionally with Laura? And what we got was sun, coffin, and anchor. Sun is awareness. This isn't hidden. Coffin is emotional heaviness. It's a shutdown. And the anchor says this is ongoing. So in the context of what we hear, this feels like real emotional weight, but not something new. And this aligns with repeated welfare checks. This has been going on. It's a sense that this isn't the first time. And it doesn't feel like a sudden crisis. It feels like something that's been there and stayed there. My spidey senses say this has been a pattern to get attention all in her whole family dynamic. It may be something she's used to get her way. It may be something that her mother has used in the past. Not saying it's true, but that's the energy I feel. Okay, so the second question was, how serious were these self-harm statements? I got clouds, and I got man, and I got dog. Clouds bring confusion, things that aren't consistent. Man ties into the person she referenced. And dog is familiarity with something going on. So this reflects exactly what we hear. I really felt this, but I'm fine. Okay. And you know what? I mean, to be fair, she probably did feel this at some point in her story, right? At some point, she probably really felt this. And I don't want to diminish people who have these kind of thoughts. So I want to say very clearly that I am just analyzing the energy patterns of this particular episode with our girl Laura Owens, her mother Jan Black. Okay. So with this, it feels like something was real in the moment, but not consistent with how it was expressed or understood. All right. My third question was, why does Jan shift into explanation instead of concern? As I mentioned, as a mother, concern would have been my very first emotion. My feeling would be like, oh my God, what's going on? And then second, how do I support and help. We don't see that much from Jan, do we? All right, so we've got heart, we got mountain, and we got book. Jan does a lot of talking, by the way. She doesn't do a lot of listening. And she doesn't really answer questions. She just runs a narrative. So, when I see the heart, of course, she cares. The mountain suggests blockage. And the book is not something fully acknowledged. And remember, when we see the book, sometimes that's secrets being revealed, or there's secrets. There's more information. So it doesn't feel like there's a lack of love here. It feels like care that runs into a wall. So how she showed her care was to run the narrative instead of staying in an emotional space. It shifts into explanation. And again, it's sort of like, why would someone respond this way? Why would someone respond this way instead of, let me get my daughter, because I'm going to let you guys in the comment sections answer that. Why do you think Jan acted this way? Because it really shows, I feels like I care, but I can't go there. So I'm going to just explain it. So I'm going to remove myself from the emotional piece of it. So the other thing that comes to me is Jan probably cares about her daughter, but how she's showing this isn't, she doesn't take this self-harm wellness check as serious. And she may not have ever taken it serious. And sometimes parents just don't want to see what's in front of them, right? Or they choose not to. Okay, so what is the truth behind I'm fine? Remember, Laura comes in on the second wellness check, and she says, I'm fine, to the officers. All right, where we got, what's the truth behind that, all right? We got bear, we got moon, and we got tower. Well, we know with Laura, bear is control. Moon is emotional state, and tower is containment. So in this context, I'm fine feels like control, not clarity. It feels like I'm holding it together, managing perception, not fully expressing what's really going on underneath. And this doesn't feel like everything is okay. It feels like everything is being contained. Now, this is the one where she says, her mom helped her with she alluded to her mom helping her with this cybercrime complaint. So what's being contained here? The truth, really. All right, so I wanted to know what the officers were thinking. What are they picking up? Because if I were an officer and listening, and I was so uncomfortable because I'm like, these people are there to do a job, to make sure, a wellness check. Someone was concerned. Two people in this instance were concerned. Somebody in New York, some friend in New York, and some, I don't know if they're a friend or not, I don't know, or the FBI calling in. So what are the officers picking up? I think you'll find this interesting. We got the whip, we got the key, and we got the bouquet. Okay, so whip is repetition, back and forth. Key is clarity, and bouquet is presentation. So this feels like they recognize the pattern, and they recognize that what they're being shown is very composed, which fits exactly how they respond. Calm, measured, offering resources, and not escalating emotionally. I heard the officer say, you can always call us, and we'll get you the help, kind of thing. And I'm like, she's not going to do that. She's about blaming other people, not taking full account of her own issues. And this feels like the officer's understanding there's more here, but staying focused on the immediate situation, which is their job. All right. And then I had to ask, does Jan know the truth? Because Jan seemed to parrot everything that Laura has projected, in my opinion. Seems like all the things that Jan was talking about, the different identities, the, stalking kind of thing, whatever, seemed like someone's narrative. So we've got the ship, we've got the woman, and we've got the ring. And it feels like she's got some awareness that's developed over time, but not this immediate recognition, but something that's becoming clearer as things continued. And this feels like someone who's come to understand, not somebody that has faced it all at once. Like, I think she has her own narrative about what's happening here internally. And I see in my mind's eye the refusal to acknowledge what's going on really. And this might come from the fact, not the fact, I'm not going to say it's a fact because I don't know. In my opinion, it could be a pattern that Jan has lived in her own life and modeled to Laura. I see Laura as an incredibly sensitive human being, picking up energy. So she could have just picked this up and made it her own. As we see in her human design and her astrology, her blueprint is she's living her shadow. She's not living her truth, her light. She may not ever have known what that could look like, because I don't think Jan has ever known what that looks like. My opinion. My spidey senses say. All right. And then I had to ask, as a mother, I'm like, has she intervened directly? And what we got is mice, birds, and fox. Because let's face it, we don't live with them. We don't see their everyday interactions. We only assume based on little pieces of what we see and how they interact. And that raid video was very enlightening to me. All right, but we're not going to talk about that today. All right, 7. So this is mice, birds, and fox. And the mice, as we've talked about before, and this shows up a lot with Laura's, anxiety, erosion, but this is, Jan. And the birds are conversations. And the fox is avoidance or a strategy. So it doesn't feel like any kind of direct intervention. It feels like maybe they talk about it, like, oh dear, like, are you really feeling this way? Or she just circles around it, but not fully addresses it head on. And, to me, that's really challenging as a mom. Because there is a part of, I think, all parents that do not want to see that level of pain, let's call it pain, and patterns in our kids, especially if they're detrimental to ourselves and others, right? And especially if Jan, we've talked about her human design, like she's all about reputation. She's all about family legacy. They're all about, keeping up the facade, so to speak. My opinion. All right. So it doesn't feel like there's any clear moment of intervention. It feels like ongoing conversations without full resolution. And I'm talking about the self-harm statements, okay? I'm talking about that. I think she gets that, like, Laura uses it as a manipulation, even if Laura feels that way at some moments of her life. And I believe that she does. And then she snaps right back into performance and her narrative. All right, so when we step back from these welfare checks, we have the pattern, the contradictions, the explanations, the containment. And it doesn't feel random at all. It feels managed. It feels ongoing. And what stands out to me is not just what's being said, but how it's being responded to. Because that's where we see what's really happening. We don't see a mother that's concerned for her daughter in the way that we think we should in a wellness check. So if you've listened to the episode of Love Trapped, this bonus episode. I'd love to hear what stood out for you. And I also went into deeper investigation in the part 2, which you will see shortly. And we get into the investigation, the evidence, the pattern that continues to unfold. So thank you for being here, liking, subscribing, and share in the comments section what you thought of this episode. And if you're a parent, what do you think? What do you think? I think that, as a mother, she seems awful, like she's very disconnected from the truth of her daughter, either by choice or not. But that's my feeling. All right. I'm Robin Richardson, your psychic girlfriend. Thank you again for being here, and I will see you in the next one.